Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Red for Anfield Index. It is Saturday, the 6th of December, and at 5:30 this afternoon, evening, whatever you want to call it, Liverpool will play at Ellen Road away against Leeds, won't they? Which is pretty much going to dominate your thoughts for most of the day. Up until then, of course, it is. Who will he play? Will it be as bad as Sunderland the other night? What about Salah, Vilvert? All those types of questions. Gakpo, all the names going round your head, of course. I'm your host, Dave Davis, coming to you from pretty nice Edinburgh, actually, at the moment. Mild is the word I would use. So fingers crossed, it is nice in the world wherever you are. But, as we said, it is the Leeds game. That is the dominant thought for today. Of course it is. I mean, this has got potential, you've got to be honest, to be the last game of Arne Slot's reign at Anfield. That's a genuine possibility, we have to say that. However, whether that comes to fruition or not, we are hoping the Reds get 3 points. And it is a pretty jam-packed schedule today. So when you look at it, there's some good football games, actually, isn't there? Villa-Arsenal, that's a cracker in just under an hour's time. City at Sunderland coming to City, so staying in the northwest. Bournemouth, Chelsea, that could be interesting. But it's us. 5:30 today. And I genuinely, as I'm saying it, am I confident? And we'll talk about the game a little bit more, of course. But am I confident? No. Am I hopeful? A little bit bizarrely, yes. But I keep thinking, what's it going to be like later on? And it's almost going to be a bit like, I suspect around 7:30 tonight, give or take, I kind of be singing in my head like hello darkness, my old friend, I've come to talk with you again, something like that. As you know, something will just be permeating around my mind later on, although I hope we're talking about 3 points, because it would just be nice to get back to winning ways, regardless of everything else that we've got to talk about as well. And we'll take you through this on Daily Red. We'll talk the Slot embargo comments. We'll talk about the Isak comments. We'll talk about the Jacob Murphy comparisons that's pretty much caused a few people to lose their minds as well. And also this game, how I think we'll set up for it. So plenty to get through in the near future. So one scan of the AI website, ladies and gents. Some interesting stories there, as we said. A certain player there, a youngster with Sky Sports Germany saying Liverpool are in advanced talks to sign a Bundesliga forward. A former player there, Kelleher, he made some comments, interestingly. Isak, he definitely made some comments about expecting much more, so we'll look into those. Arne Slot talked about Alexander Isak as well. And there's been various reports about what Liverpool need to do. But I need to get stuck into a little bit on the transfer, first of all. So if you recognise your name or you watch the Bundesliga, you will have recognised the photo of the young Red Bull Leipzig winger, Jan Diomande, who, just 19 now, is causing a bit of a stir in the Bundesliga. And I think it's fair to say, in world football, that with his performances, a few goals, a few assists, two-footed, a lot to like about this player. And we actually asked David Lynch, because there have been reports on Media Matters yesterday about it, and said nothing imminent by any means, very young, too right, but one that Liverpool are definitely watching. Of course they are. Most of the big clubs in Europe are keeping an eye on this player. And if you haven't really watched any of him, I would implore you to. Because, say, just 19, can play on the left and right. So, it looks two-footed often if you watch the footage of him. But look at some of them stats, ladies and gents. 99th percentile for progressive carries and take-ons. Look at that. Nearly 7 a game progressive carries. Carries the ball, beats a man. Over 4 per 90. Yeah, works hard, though. Interceptions, 98th percentile. Shot creating actions, 93rd percentile. For a young kid, and when you're comparing him to some of those names that he's being measured against, and again, small sample size, as we're always told to talk about, quite rightly, when we're only 19 years old. But look, he's being compared against the Kavicas, the Barcolas, the Doués, the Sakas of this world. This kid has got a lot of talent. If it isn't us, someone will be taking this kid, I guarantee you, in the summer. And in terms of his raw attributes, the other great thing you get about Bundesliga players, of course, is you get their physical metrics on the Bundesliga website, if you've seen it at all. So when you look at that speed, 35.98 kmh. As they say where I'm from, shit off a shovel, ladies and gents. That's the second fastest time in the Bundesliga this season. So fast, two-footed, works hard, makes things happen, beats a man, carries the ball, all the things. Probably the Reds are lacking right now, in all honesty. And people will say, what about, Semenyo being linked? And wingers is going to be the talk of the day a little bit, isn't it? If you've seen the latest other headlines or stories. But reason I wanted to talk about that, I would not dismiss Jan Diomande down the line. It's not going to happen in January, especially at the price that's being rumoured. But one for the summer. If it's not us, someone else will do it. Be interesting to see, eh? In terms of things closer to home and more immediate, Arne Slot's Embargo dropped at 10:30. I think that last night, wasn't it? With his comments. And the big focus, realistically, was around Alexander Isak and links. And some people have gone a little bit potty over this. And I think anything Arne Slot says right now, and I get that a little bit because of how we're playing, what's happening, is going to be hyper-analysed and people are just going to lose it over. But if you haven't seen it, he did talk about Alexander Isak and there were specific things he said. So in terms of numbers, this was one of the big things because of his average touches. Saying, the lack of touches he has, ideally said, no, it's not ideal for me, no. But do you know how many he had at Newcastle on average? No, 22. So in this league, strikers don't touch the ball that much, but the few times they do touch it is quite nice if they finish it off. And it was a little bit the story of that against West Ham, wasn't it? He didn't really touch the ball, didn't really do anything, Isak, until Cody Gakpo cuts it back. And it's a brilliant finish. Still don't underestimate that finish at all into the bottom corner. Absolutely sensational. But you saw against Sunderland, we were passive. We didn't get him service. And look what happened. Are we settled for Alexander Isak? That's a bit of a question at the same time as well. However, that wasn't the bit that Arne Slot made everyone lose their shizzle over, really, wasn't it? It was this bit. When he said, on part of Alexander Isak's struggles, it's obvious and clear that we've not the profile of Jacob Murphy, for example, available at this time. Now, this has caused a bit of a meltdown among some people, hasn't it? Because some people have done, Jacob Murphy's crap, plays for Newcastle. Blah, blah, blah. I think a little bit of the point has been missed on this. He didn't say Jacob Murphy, he said the profile of Jacob Murphy. And I get it right now. Anything that Arne Slot is going to say, you are going to jump on really hard. But the key thing that was being said there is a profile of Jacob Murphy. And if you look at Jacob Murphy, if you watched any of him in recent times, it is about a player that whips the ball in, does get chalk on his boots on that right-hand touchline. Almost for want of a better phrase, I don't really like this, but there's a true element of this, a more traditional winger, which is what Newcastle tended to play with. Liverpool tend to play, as we know, Salah, Gakpo, anything but traditional wingers. That doesn't make it right or wrong. But I think the key point that was being made there is if you want to get the best out of £125 million Alexander Isak, why wouldn't you set up to his strengths? Why wouldn't you play it that way? Whatever you think about Arne Slot's position, and listen, I think he should go. I've said that before, but just focus on this bit right now. It's near on impossible to argue. And the whole Jacob Murphy profile thing, now, this actually does my nut in a little bit, but he mentioned this for a while, and he did a piece a good few weeks back now, isn't it? Sam Maguire did it for his Patron, talking about the Alexander Isak conundrum. And he actually mentioned this, and he won't mind me showing this in terms of the way they play. If you look at Anthony Gordon's heat map and the way he works, but more importantly, I think it looks like a fireplace, doesn't it, in one of those locations. Look at the way he gets, or where his boots are, where his heat map is, as they'd say. It's absolutely crucial and distinct. And this is the thing. I get Jordan saying them, chat pals, this sounds like we bought Downing for Carroll. It's not about it. We need to ignore the fact it is Jacob Murphy. It's the profile of Jacob Murphy, isn't it? More traditional style wingers is how you get the best out of Alexander Isak. We don't play that way, which begs the question, why did you spend 125 million and not change the system to benefit a striker that you're going to spend 125 million on? That's the key point, isn't it? And Arne Slot, whose words are going to be jumped upon, was talking about profiles, wasn't he, and what we have. Will be interesting to see what we do in the near future, or say January, more likely some of you fancy around this. But also the line that, or say an interview he had with Sky Sports, wasn't it? Alexander Isak. He did say, I expect to do much more. I always do that, even when I do really well. It's fair to say we all expect much more. We knew there was going to be an adaptation period. You knew he was going to have to get fit. Of course, you gave him a bit of leeway, a bit of mitigation on that. Of course you did. But you didn't expect to be sat here on the 6th of December saying that he'll have 2 goals, one in the Carabao and one in the Premier League. And they've only scored that Premier League goal last week as well. He's not getting the service. The team isn't set up for him. You spent 125 million, but even with that, is he doing enough? I'm not really sure. He's been injured for a bit as well, hasn't he? Which was always a bit of a risk with the record. Just to be clear, I still think it's the way the team sets up. What Arne Slot is doing right now is the big count against Isak. Absolutely, as it seems to be for most of the players at the moment. But that doesn't just mean it's 100% the manager's responsibility, does it? We're all looking for more off Alexander Isak. And to be fair, it is a good read when you look at some of his comments. You know, he's quite an honest player when he says, I expect much more, and the standards that he sets himself as well. We'll see if he lives up to any of those in the near or immediate future. That's a little bit of talking about players that are currently at Anfield. In terms of players that are no longer at Anfield, Caoimhin Kelleher gave a few interviews and a few words, didn't he, yesterday, talking about Mo Salah. He said, it was really bad for my confidence. He was unbelievable. His finishing is different. It's the timing of when to shoot and how to place it. He doesn't care how it goes in. He's incredible and such a humble guy and the hardest working. Too right, Queeve should be praising Mo Salah. You think, he helped him get a title medal, didn't he, really, last season before he departed? There should be sort of love there. Also, it is a good interview if you've seen it with Queeve, where he talks about, his friends at the football club, like Andy Robbo, how he grew close to Conor Bradley, how, the Jota tragedy affected him at the same time. It's quite an interesting interview, and he does come across as very a considered, I would say, intelligent guy at the same time. So even though it is a former player, if you get a few minutes, I would say it's well worth a watch, as well as those comments with Sky Sports, or the interview, with Sky Sports for Isak, just worth sort of 10, 15 minutes of your time each, I would say. However, they are not the biggest story from today, are they? Not even for 1 single second, because Indy dropped this, didn't he? You probably know what I'm going to put on the screen, but it was an Indy bomber this morning, wasn't it? Al Ittihad have contacted Liverpool over a January move for Mo Salah. Now, a few months ago, and I say that, this would just be like heresy, which it still probably is. It would be unthinkable, which it isn't anymore. The reality of where we are with Mo Salah now is, and some of this we'll all have our opinions, and he's my favourite player. You know I adore the man, but Arne Slot's last 2 games for Liverpool, West Ham away, Sunderland home, were must-win games. He knew that. He knew the pressure on him. And Mo Salah was on the bench for both of those. And I think that tells you more than anything any of us could really say about it. Not only that, if you saw the Sunderland game, had the balaclava over his face, didn't he? Which, drew attention. Of course, if anything Mo Salah does, it's going to draw attention. We've had the Salah Saudi stories for a while now as well. We've talked about a transfer show, got a lot of stick for it, funnily enough, about a month and a half ago. And then you've had the likes of Alex Crook and others mentioning Saudi's interested in Mo Salah. But Indy's almost the GOAT has knocked it up a level, hasn't he? Saying now that over a January move, because all the stories, all the info we'd had on Anfield Index had been towards this summer coming. Suppose the big question is there anything in this one? This is a difficult one, because if you go pure business, there's a few things on this that people say, what way we're going to play? We need to find out the manager, I think, who we're going to have, because I'm still not convinced Arne Slot is going to be here for too long. So who's going to be in charge of Liverpool? And then you get into the argument of, does the manager or head coach, have a say like Arne Slot with Richard Hughes in recruitment? So that bit's got to be sorted. If it is Richard Hughes and, the powers that be, okay. It's so tough, this, isn't it? But would a new manager or head coach coming in, what thinking, no, I want Mo Salah, I can get the best out of him that way. That comes into the mix. What do Liverpool think from a business head longer term? I fully suspect they do this deal in the summer. January is a different kettle of fish, because if you let Mo Salah go, and I know some of you are going to jump on with the AFCON, but just get past that for a second, because obviously into the rest of the season and the business end of the season, are you comfortable losing Mo Salah, especially if a new manager came in? I'm not personally. But I get some of you will say at the same time, nah, get this done now, get the money in, get the wages off the books, and get a winger in to supplement Alexander Isak, Florian Wirtz, and make things a bit different. I don't know. I genuinely don't know what will happen with this. I don't really hold too much stock in it. I think Mo Salah will be a Liverpool player till the end of this season. But the person who will ultimately make the call in that is Mo Salah himself. He will decide, which is the interesting prospect, isn't it? Because Mo Salah, quite rightly, has a lot of pride. Mo Salah will expect to be one of the main men. Of course he is. Look at the deal he signed. Look at his history. Look at what he's achieved. He will also point and say, look what everyone else in the team is doing, and I've got a record that some of them haven't. All true. I do just wonder, though. You just get this sneaking suspicion, a bit like a few summers ago. This might well rumble right until the end of January. Tough one, eh? But, yeah. I'm not going to say much more about the Egyptian king. We will see what develops on that one. The big focus of today, ladies and gents, is this, isn't it? It's actually having a good morning, actually. I was enjoying a brew, and then I saw this tweet land where it says, Matchday, the Reds travel to Ellen Road as we face Leeds United. And normally for a Saturday kickoff under the lights, you'd be quite pumped for it, enjoying it, looking forward to it. And yet you have to be honest and say, look at what we've seen in the last few games. West Ham, when he thought it wasn't a case of, we knew we hadn't fully turned a corner, but it's something to work with, a bit of a different setup, a bit of a different style, getting the best out of potentially Wirtz and Isak. And then we got to West Ham, where we saw exactly the same lineup. So, okay, we're going for this again. But no, Arne Slot tweaked it completely, didn't he? Quite often, Cody Gakpo was even deeper than Andy Robertson. Quite sometimes, if you look from the stands, we were a 5-3-2, bizarrely. The press was non-existent. Sunderland were able to play out through us easy. You kind of wonder, what the heck are we doing now? What has caused this change? Because it clearly was bizarre and clearly wasn't working. early doors. You also saw Robbo underlapping, whereas against West Ham, and I know Kirk has had cramp for this one, so we couldn't start, no issue with that. But why the change in tactics? Why not get Robbo replicating what Kirkes was doing? It just didn't make sense. And this Sunderland game, we were weak. This Sunderland game, we were passive. It was boring, let's be honest. So you are just wondering a little bit around how he's going to set up for this one. And Arne Slot talked in his presser, and I get he's got to say things. He's got to come out fighting a bit. But, and he mentioned it in the embargo about, we've got to look that we've stopped conceding goals recently, as we have done. We stopped that, and but for a deflection, we'd have had 2 clean sheets in a row, which is true, you can argue. But by playing mid-table football, by being one of the most dull sides in the Premier League, that's how we're doing it at the moment in the last few. So Christ knows what this one's going to bring, people. In terms of injury news, though, there was a bit of positive. There was a bit of, okay, I probably expected this. So just in case you did miss it, let's have a listen to what he said at the presser about injuries.
Can I just check on team news? Do you expect Conor Bradley to be back involved, and did everyone get through the Sunderland game okay?
Yeah, they did. Joe Gomez got a knock in the West Ham game, but was still able to start. But he couldn't make the full 90 minutes. But I think he will be able to train again today. So yesterday was a recovery day for most of them. Today we will train again, and let's see where they are. But Conor Bradley has trained this week, so I expect him to train today, and then he is available to be in the squad tomorrow.
Hi, Arne. I wanted to ask you about Cody Gakpo.
So yeah, bit of a positive injury day update, a major, maybe one expected, let's call it that. Conor Bradley back in training, so he seems he's available for this one. Joe Gomez, probably not a surprise, couldn't, played 2 in a week, had a knock against West Ham, of course he did. So we're a little bit unsure, but touch wood, should be available for this one against Leeds at the same time. Which again comes to, does it affect your lineup, or does it affect Arne Slot's thought process, which seems jumbled and almost hard to decipher at the moment. So again, it's another one of those where it's in this quote unquote easier run. It's all right to say you were expecting things from these types of games. Nothing wrong with saying that at all. I mean, when you look at Leeds, look at that. They've shipped 26 goals. Their goal difference is -10. They've won 4 games. And by the way, one of those was the other night against Chelsea at home, wasn't it? But there's the problem. Just it looks like Daniel Farke was on his way out. They've only gone and saved the Farke, haven't they? Started playing, started getting results. And if you watch the game against Chelsea, set pieces at the same time as well. They are dangerous. They are direct from those. All the things that, Everton's Liverpool's kryptonite a little bit at the moment. But if you didn't know the teams, I suspect you're going to get the look of very much a mid-table, bottom of the table scrap coming up. That is honestly how I think Arne Slot is going to set up to contain again. I think the priority does seem to be, for want of a better phrase, stop the bleeding at the moment, stop the goals going in. As he's honestly said in the press conference as well, set pieces, a bit of individual magic. That's what we'll rely on. Like the other night, where it's a crap goal to concede as typical, and a bit of a Florian Wirtz mazy dribble, bit of a luck with deflection, but we'll bank on those types of things. I think that is what is going to happen today. Tell me if you disagree. I just can't see anything different. I think, of course, it's going to be Alisson in nets, as long as he's fit, naturally. Virgil and Ibu at centre-back. I do think Milos Kerkez will come back into the lineup. I think Robbo was only there because of cramp, as Arne Slot alluded to. I do think as well, Conor Bradley goes straight back in. He's got games coming up. Joe Gomez is, carrying a knock, as Joe Gomez always is. So he'll want to balance that again and give himself centre-half cover. So I actually think Conor Bradley will come straight back into the lineup for this one. In terms of other selections, this is where it gets a bit trickier, but simple in some places. I do think you're going to get the same midfield, as in you'll get McAllister, Gravenberch, and Dominic Szoboszlai. Now, I've got to be honest, because people are getting on each of their backs in different way. Of course, a lot less for Szoboszlai because he's been carrying us for this season, but he wasn't great against Sunderland. But, you know, if you can let anyone have a game off at the moment or not the best, Dominic Szoboszlai. Ryan Gravenberch has been abject for a while now. Absolutely abject. Make no mistake about it. I've been furious with Ryan Gravenberch for the last few weeks. I know people think different things about Gravenberch, but this has been seen in the last few weeks. Shitting out at 50-50 challenges, not going in there when we need it. Just not good enough. But he'll play. Alexis McAllister, the best midfielder in the Premier League last season. Looks like he's running around with a parachute on his back. Genuinely, I'm not sure that's the whole Arne Slot. And I know me and Trev had the transfer show the other night, and he was right, and we chatted about it, that Arne Slot is the major problem. And as Trev gave that line, when you've got a multitude of problems, you just got one problem, which tends to be the manager. And I do think that's the key. But Alexis McAllister has again been abject recently. That there is a Liverpool problem. I would like to see Curtis Jones in there. And maybe if Conor Bradley plays, do we think Curtis Jones gets a start? I wouldn't mind that for his energy at all. Genuinely wouldn't. And then, to me, you could drop McAllister or Gravenberch. But I don't think it would happen. Funnily enough, Roy Hodgson with the gay there saying, someone made a great point about Liverpool. Our two best players last season are showing signs of age-related decline. That ain't on Slot. That's just nature. I get that to an element. There was always going to be some element of decline, of course, but not to this extent. I don't think anyone expected that. And also, when your whole team is gash, you've got to look at the manager. That's the key thing. And you look at our tactics. We are weak. We are passive. We are boring. We look, which is the biggest charge you can level against Arne Slot right now, we look uncoached. Well, it's quite funny that that's Roy Hodgson, as the YouTube moniker, putting that in the chat panel. But there you go. In terms of the forward line, yeah, this will be interesting. Cody Gakpo came off at half time, didn't he? But you suspect his golden boy is going to be straight back into the lineup there. It would be absolutely massive if he left Mo Salah out for this one. And I don't think he will. I think because of the need for rotation, as he talked about, the games in 10, 14 days, I think Mo Salah will come back for this one. And then your top man, it's a bit of a kick in the guts for this Ekitike, isn't it? Because he's, almost getting used to on the bench, having had a good little international break. But I do think he's now, for however long he's here, going to try and play Alexander Isak to fitness form. And that way, I just get the feeling, which I don't want this to be the lineup, but I think you're going to see Ekitike and Vert on the bench. That's what I think will happen. Is it what I want? No. It's almost trying to get into Arne Slot's head a little bit, and his psyche is a little bit puzzling. At the same time, I would also wouldn't mind seeing, I want to see Verts on the pitch instead of Gakpo on the left. Yes. Do I want to see Curtis Jones on the pitch? Yes. There's changes I would make personally. Do I think Arne Slot will do it? I'm not so sure. That is my predicted lineup for this. Which then brings us to, what do you think the score and scorers will be? Jesus Christ. My head is telling me this has got like 1-1 or not a great game of football written all over it. My heart's still saying, as we should win this. We should get a good result. I just don't know, people. I really don't. It is hard to predict everything going on. And you can call it dramatic. I don't really care. But if Liverpool lose today, I think I would say, I would already let him go. But I think it actually becomes untenable. I think it hits that mark for the suits, the powers that be. If Arne Slot loses at Leeds, bear in mind that in third place, Aston Villa with 5 points behind them and with 3 points behind fourth place Chelsea. So that gap could be bigger on both before we start this game. I think it would become untenable. And it's funny, Chris saying that, I disagree. I've seen the theories, and we don't really know, it's all theories, isn't it? That people will say, oh, he's got till the end of the season. People will say, oh, no, he's got until the end of the year to turn it around and, the January window. I already think he should go. I think it becomes untenable if he loses to Leeds in the eyes of the powers that be. We will see. Listen, I hope we win. So I hope this is absolutely never being discussed at all. But you ain't confident for today if you're deadly honest. In terms of other content, this is absolutely pouring out the wazoo. Look at all this you've got for the last day or so on Anfield Index. Me and Trev did the transfer show, so you've got that. You had Gaz and Griggs talking managerial candidates, the tactical chaos. We had Media Matters with David Lynch talking the worrying signs with Arne Slot, potential replacements, transfer links as well. And Harry, John, a bit of a coup there to get John McKenzie from The Athletic on that as well at the same time. So there's plenty of content all the way through till kickoff as well. And of course, post kickoff, Jack's not on the watch along, but you'll have the Gags doing his show post match, and you'll have Dave, Trev, and whoever on Raw at the same time as well. So we have got you covered all the way through. Here's the big question, though, ladies and gents. By 7:30-ish tonight, because that's around when it'll finish, give or take, where will Liverpool be in this table? Will they still be in 9th place? Will they still have 22 points? What will the gap be to 4th place and 3rd? Will it be 3 points and 5 points? It is so hard to say. What will 17th place Leeds United do to us? Hope prevails, people. Does expectation? Well, you've not got too long to wait, haven't you? Just over 5 hours, as we say. The 5:30 kickoff, Ellen Road away in the meantime. And I've tried to give it a bit of a grace room so you can grab a brew. You've got the Arsenal-Villa game at 12:30, a good one worth watching. Whereas this is how desperate this season is. Might even be better if Arsenal win, isn't it? To keep the gap to the others, if you're honest. I can't want or will Arsenal to win, but in terms of what might be best, that probably sums up this season, doesn't it? Yeesh. But there we go. We will see what tonight brings. Listen, whatever it does, we're going to have coverage all the way through. Whatever it does, there's going to be plenty to talk about. But before the match, on Saturday, the 6th of December, that was another Daily Red for Anfield Index.